Gargasoulis returning to the Supreme Court as a convicted murderer.
The purpose of this video is to provide further indication that people died during the Jimmy Gargasoulis Bourke Street staged event, contrary to what some other people believe. Now, this time around, if people disagree with me, I just ask, please, just be civil and put up your arguments in a reasoned way. I don't want to go through the profanities and the insults, and I even got one comment that it was intolerable. It's getting a bit authoritarianism for the truth community. As a quick recap, I don't believe that a prosecution can invent names all out of thin air or entities out of thin air for the purpose of a murder conviction, and I don't think they can say that someone who was alive died if they were still alive. So that's the main reason why I believe that people died. The second was less, I guess, substantial, but that was the probate notice for Jess Moody and the obituaries for some of the other ones.
Today, Gargasoulis sat and listened as family of 3 of the 6 people he killed delivered victim impact statements.
Now, I believe that these victim impact statements are further indications that people died. And if you look at they are actually sworn evidence. You can't make a victim impact statement to make up lies in order to try and affect the sentence, because that would be perverting the course of justice. So that's why they're done under sworn evidence and under oath. Here are the 6 people that died, and I think it's telling as to who makes the victim impact statements under oath. Now, underlined is the 3 people that got killed. Their families gave victim impact statements, but it's 2 of the other 3 that didn't. Now, I believe that they were part of the original hoax, but they had already died prior to the day of the event, and but with their children. And I think they either died of SIDS or some other disease. I think they were identified through the Victorian public hospital system by the powers that be, and then parents were co-opted for obviously huge compensation amounts to use them in this event. Now, indications prior to these victim impact statements that they were part of the original hoax was certainly the dodgy funeral for one of them, the infamous phone call to the hospital, and that her sister was laying on the ground, and when the camera went up to them, she started to cry on cue. And as for the other 2, it was the unemotional interviews that they gave, and the fact they had a GoFundMe page the day after the event, which doesn't seem believable for someone who's just lost a child. And those earlier indications they were part of the hoax ties in with the fact that they didn't give, or the families didn't give, sworn evidence in a court in victim impact statements. And I've said in my earlier hypothesis that I think things went wrong up at Flinders Street Station with the baseball bat guys, and cops suddenly started, undercover cops were just going everywhere, arguing with each other, trying to save the situation. And they wouldn't have had all that out in the open and scripted it if things didn't go wrong. You had the big fat guy in a black shirt directing Jimmy and the cops down towards away from where the donut scene was held. Now, I think that threw their timing out, and I'm not saying that they went down Bourke Street and killed them, or they went down another street and killed them, but the other 4 people died, and they weren't meant to have died, which is why I think that forced the murder conviction rather than the mental health angle, which I think they had originally scripted, right, at the start for that to be the case. Because then they got all the laws in, and Jimmy gets to pretty well get off scot-free, but things went wrong. They went from being a hoax to a false flag. And I think the fact that 3 of those big families from those victims gave sworn evidence before the court. You don't have to be in the witness box to give sworn evidence, by the way. There's no hard and fast rule that you must stand in that location. You can give evidence under oath, not always inside the witness box. They do use it, but not always, particularly if they're trying to address, say, Jimmy. Might not have a good vantage point. But anyway. So yeah, it's telling that the people who I think died accidentally, their families are giving sworn evidence because they truly believe that Jimmy did kill their loved ones. And now, why wouldn't the other 2? Why wouldn't that other Bryant guy? He's been at the court before. Why isn't he there giving a tearful victim impact statement? In fact, the kids, it's probably a bigger tragedy losing young kids. They would be more inclined to be there to give victim impact statements, but they're not, because they're part of the hoax, the original hoax, and it's only the ones whose family died through the fakery, it was by accident, they're the ones that give them the victim impact statement.
22-year-old Jessica Moody, an insurance worker from Sydney, was walking through the mall with colleagues when she was hit. Her mother wrote, "Never in my wildest nightmares did I think I would have to bury one of my precious children. You will never be forgiven." Jessica's twin sister Emily heard there'd been an incident and started desperately contacting hospitals. "I kept thinking she would call me, telling me she was okay." 25-year-old Yusuke Kano was on a study trip from Japan with dreams of becoming an occupational therapist. His grieving parents told the court through an interpreter Yusuke chose Melbourne because he thought it was the world's most livable and safest city. 33-year-old finance consultant Bhavita Patel was killed on her lunch break. Her brother said, "I get scared sometimes I am forgetting her laugh and her voice."
That's it for this one. So I just want to reiterate that, yeah, I think these victim impact statements, the fact that they were either done as a statutory declaration or were given as sworn evidence in the court, add weight to the fact that the three of them died. Like I said, I think the other hoax kids, they died and were co-opted, that tracked through the hospital system and then co-opted and integrated into it that way, whereas I think these other four died. As far as Matthew C's no victim statement there, I don't know what that's about, but I'll certainly sort of be vocal about the three that did turn up. I do think they do believe. I think their kids, their loved ones did die, and I think they do believe it. Now, given these, they don't know all the circumstances. They weren't in Melbourne, of course, but they know that they died, and they're giving these victim impact statements. And they were alive, and now they're dead. So that's basically what I was saying. These people are saying nobody died. What you're sort of doing. See, I'm accusing the government of staging a hoax. We all are. But I'm accusing them of something else. I'm accusing them of killing people in there and then blaming Jimmy Gargasaurus. Now, when you say nobody died, you're absolving the government of that. You're on their side, the powers that be that staged this thing, by lessening the allegation or take an element out that makes it look really bad. Now, I'm not saying that you're working for the government. In fact, I'm sure you're not. Well, I mean, most anyway. So yeah, I sort of find it ironic that I'm accusing the government to do. I'm not lessening it, and yet people came at me really hard, calling me, saying it was intolerable what I was saying, saying the government did something worse when they actually did. So yeah, I had this comment. I was just thinking about it. You said you got rocks in your head, you're mad. Didn't give anything to back it up, and it was on a bit of a nondescript video. It was on the one that I did on Isis Khan's house sale. Just pretty nondescript, and he's still calling me mentally ill and everything. I thought, I thought she should all take a long, hard look at ourselves. He said I should get some psych testing. I can't afford psych testing, but maybe if I had a relative that was, say an in-law or someone that was in the psychology business, that one, I don't know, go down that path. But no, I don't think we are mentally ill, and I know I'm not. I think I don't want to do it. All right, that's it for this one.